So, I found myself at a Scottish wedding recently and was delighted to find that there was a whisky tasting. When I went over to find out about the whisky, I was quickly dismissed by my Scottish male host. As a woman, and God forbid Australian, how could I have any whisky knowledge or appreciation? This was a bit of a first for me, and I'm not one to be dismissed, so I found myself in a fairly colourful exchange, demonstrating my extensive whisky knowledge. The next day we chatted, and he actually apologised, saying he'd underestimated me. I think it was kind of a compliment. Whisky. Yes, whisky. I know a lot about it, from the science of distilling to flavour profiles in the most remote part of Scotland. But unless I shared this with you, how would you know? This is a challenge we face in the workplace. We can't always see the value that people can bring or the knowledge that they have. And often our blind spots can be holding us back. 3 years ago, I was sick of hearing there was a lack of women leading companies because there was a pipeline issue. So basically, no women at the top because they weren't moving through an organisation to that senior position. I thought this was a lazy excuse and, quite frankly, a cop-out. Having spent a number of fantastic, challenging and enlightening years in these businesses, I was pretty sure I knew why women were not staying. I also felt that technology could change their experience. So I spent my time meeting with business leaders around the world in their head offices, trying to get to the bottom of what worked, what didn't, what were the real issues, and could I help solve them? Could we maybe build something that dealt with the issue of women moving through the pipeline? And if women just needed better sponsorship, which was often an area of discussion, maybe we could help with that. And then in 2016, heaven's gates opened and poured gifts upon the earth. Academics, consultancies and banks released some of the strongest and most conclusive evidence to date. It turns out, the more women and diverse talent you have leading your business, the higher the profits. Finally, it seemed like an absolute no-brainer. Earlier this year, I met with a global leader who told me he didn't think people believed the business case for diversity. He had a big job and a big remit. So you're telling me you don't think that your leaders and your colleagues believe there's a business case for this? Nope, nada, nothing. It was mental. It was a bit like saying 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4. And you know, at first, I was dumbfounded, but then I felt rage. What business leader or CEO would not want to deliver more profits? Isn't that better for everyone? And whether you work in a corporate or not, there is always a knock-on benefit. These returns impact pension funds, which can benefit even the smallest freelancer, right through to more taxes being paid, which benefits all of society. The rage, it actually started to subside, and I started to feel grateful for this rare moment of honesty because it allowed me to go deeper. I had certainly bought into these powerful marketing messages, believing that with this new evidence, it would be the change needed. But to be fair, after years working in these corporates, deep down, I knew that cultural and behavioural change, it was hard. I had experienced the best and worst of humans in these workplaces. I mean, sometimes I had felt like an 80s rock star. The teamwork, the music, the lights, the air guitar. Other times, stuck in some tribal, homogeneous groupthink, like a scene from Lord of the Flies without the war paint and spears. And what was clearer to me than ever before was that as humans, we don't just do something because it is good for us. I too am human, and I recently took my parents to Provence. Now, I have this particular leaning towards cured meat, cheese and fine French wine. Now, every day my mother would helpfully remind me that I needed to have 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. Now, even though I was on holidays and my holiday diet does not reflect my normal diet, and I am closer to the age of 40 than I am 5, Mum. Now, I know I should have 2.5 cups of vegetables a day. I know it is the right thing to do. I know the health benefits of a long life and healthy, clear skin. But because I'm an adult and I generally do what I want, sometimes I don't feel like this, or I get busy and I don't eat this. Just being aware does not make me apply this knowledge. You know, while I've been preparing for this talk, I've been pumping out Beyoncé's "Who Run the World, Girls?" And then, only to read that there are more men named John leading US companies than women CEOs in total. And then I start to hear, "Who run the world, John?" And I gotta say, look, it just doesn't have the same ring to it. The good news is there's never been a better time for this change. Even as our political environments are radically changing and not always progressively, the corporate world is coming together. We have leaders, Johns, Jims, Viveks, Jorge's, signing up for the UN's He for She campaign, holding up signs on social media to signal their support for #gender parity. Now, this is powerful stuff and a real public commitment. It is progressive and an important part of the journey. But how do we take this beyond the hashtag? #real action, #getting it to work, #starting with gender. How do we hack the workplace? Use everyday technology to change everyday behaviour. Use everyday technology to help us see past the blind spots. Use everyday technology to help change who corporate leaders see and what they do. How do we deal with the human parts of that change? Well, we need to make it easy. How do I get that 2.5 cups of vegetables deliciously prepared and in my belly? Smartphones. They're changing our personal lives and our working lives. Now, I'm not saying that being on all the time is necessarily a good thing. However, I do believe we can be smarter with the devices we literally have to hand. So here's something I prepared earlier. Meet John. John is a general manager of a corporation with about 10,000 people. Now, he is committed to supporting female talent at his firm. But you know, sometimes John gets busy and he only sees the people that are in front of him. The company also has talent programs. So surely someone else is looking after this corporate commitment anyway, right? Meet Zoe. Zoe is a computer science graduate in the same organisation. Fresh to the corporate world, in her day-to-day, she does not meet with John. But if we can get her access and visibility to senior leaders, not only will she develop her skills, she is more likely to stay and move up through the organisation into a leadership position. So, here's John getting a little nudge to help him do the things that he's actually signed up to do. So take him along to the next senior meeting he's having. Over to Zoe, she's being notified what's been set up. This is an example of a bot where we've used geolocation, gender data, and calendar availability. What we're doing here is, it's an experience that feels familiar. So we're helping John see the world and the people in it a little differently. By getting John to do something, we're broadening and positively reinforcing his neural pathways and his association with Zoe. This is not a training program where you tick a box when it's done. This is real action and visibility. We're changing who John sees and what he does. So many times I've had leaders tell me that it's the frozen middle of an organisation that's stopping this change. And it's not that winter is coming, it's that it is here. Technology can take us to a brighter, warmer and fairer workplace. We can use technology so that the best and different people get that next promotion. We also need to be able to point to more than a few or the same role models. Technology can help us with that trickle-down effect through the organisation. My workplace hack not only shines a light on blind spots, it makes it easier to manage, measure, and scale this change. And in this case, gender balance. But how do we hack our way to evolution? You and the people you work with are already using technology in this way. Last month, I met with the chairman of one of the world's biggest banks, and during our discussion we spoke about innovation and in particular startup accelerators, where they basically work with a third party to support startups. When I asked him, did it change the culture at the bank, his answer was no, not really, but it did make them cool. Cool. Banking. Cool. I pondered this as I left the meeting and walked out into Canary Wharf, running into a group of about 100 people. And at first I thought someone must have been giving something away, maybe donuts. I mean, who doesn't love donuts? But then I realised they were in small groups, moving between each other and frantically tapping their phones. They were, in fact, catching Pokemon. And as I walked past this group, what really struck me was the diversity. Old, young, black, white, male, female, the suited and the booted, and even the hipsters. Pokemon had enabled online to offline and had brought together an incredibly diverse group of people. This change, it's not just for gamers. It's time to tool up and help our corporations evolve. We know this stuff. It works all too well. Smart technology in our mobile phones helps us buy things we don't really need, get to the bus on time, and meet new people, which can be very fun when you're single. We need to take this, hack this, and use it in our workplaces. Let's change who really runs the world.